You are now listening to the Project Kuwait. Where we stop at nothing to bring you the right facts on health, fitness, and psychology. Featuring some of the world's most experienced professionals so you can learn, live, and live. With your hosts, Meg, Dr. D, and Mehdi.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of The Project. I get to sit down with Mike Bourne, Born Fit to Swim. Now, he knows a lot about swimming, and especially when it comes to CrossFit and how you can build swimming into your CrossFit life. Not only CrossFit, but he talks about swimming and how you can build it into your daily life and some of the do's and don'ts and things that you want to look for and why you should swim. So enjoy this episode, and please don't forget to leave us a rating and review. All this and more in today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of The Project. I am back in Dubai at CrossFit Alliance doing an interview. Thank you, CrossFit Alliance, for letting me use your office. And I am joined by Mike Bourne. Did I say that right?
You did, yeah.
All right, good. I didn't butcher it too bad.
No, it's good.
CrossFit swimming coach, decent CrossFitter from what I'm understanding.
I'm
very,
all right.
Very humble guy.
I'm not too strong. That's the.
So a very humble guy, I'm assuming. Now, dude, how'd you get to Dubai? Let's start there.
So I've been here 5 years now. Originally, I actually moved out here because my girlfriend at the time moved out here to work for Emirates. And I didn't want to do long distance. And I think it was roughly about 6 months after she moved out, I followed. And then, just been here ever since. She's not here anymore. She's gone back to the UK, following on with her lifestyle. So I decided to stay. The lifestyle here suited me. I enjoy the sun. I enjoy the laid back, relaxed, let's grab a coffee most days kind of lifestyle. So yeah, that's why I stayed.
Sweet, dude. And you get to swim all year, obviously.
There you go. Yeah, the weather's perfect.
So what's the deal? Where did you start swimming?
I started swimming back in the UK when I was about probably like 3-4 years old, and then got referred onto a swimming coach, a swimming club. And then I think it was by the time I was like 6 or 7, I started swimming competitively, like in galas and competitions and open meets and stuff. And at the same time, I was sort of playing football, or soccer as the Americans call it. And I was at Birmingham City Football Club until I was about 12, and then I got let go. So then I sort of missed the team element, playing with my mates, playing in a team. And, I thought I'll give water polo a go. So water polo then became my main sport. Started playing when I was 13. By the time I was 14, I got picked for the GB youth team. Then 15, 16, 17, I was sort of like the Great Britain junior team. And then I got my first senior call up for the Great Britain men's team when I was 18, and then stayed in the team all the way through until I was about 24, I think it was, 24, 25. Just missed out on the Olympic team. And then I basically retired after the Olympics. I'd had like a good career. I'd played professionally in Australia, in Holland, in Spain, in their respective like top divisions, and also played in the British League for Manchester. And yeah, when I didn't get picked for the Olympics, I was absolutely gutted. So sort of lost a bit of motivation and retired, as it were. Played another season for Manchester in the National League, and then got asked to come back into the England squad then for the Commonwealth Games in 2014. So made a bit of a comeback for that team, and we ended up winning the Commonwealth Games. So obviously I then officially retired from international comp after sort of finishing on a bit of a high and winning a gold medal. So that was 2014. I then played about half a season more for Manchester then before I moved over here. And then I've played a couple of competitions for a team out here called Dubai Camels. And that's about it, really. I think there was about a 3-year period where I didn't touch a ball, but then last year or so, I've played a couple of comps and just started to splash around a bit more.
Damn, dude. That's pretty damn impressive, to be honest with you. Now, when it comes to swimming, you've pretty much done it all, so to speak. Is swimming for everybody?
I believe it is. I believe it should be. There's a big difference there. It's whether you want to or not, but I personally believe swimming is a massive life skill. It's an important skill to have. If you never know when you're going to end up in a situation where you need to know how to swim. It could be as simple as just going to the beach with your family and getting caught in a rip or a current that you're not used to, and then just having that strength in the water, that ability and the technique in the water to sort of get you out is, I think it's an important thing. So I don't necessarily think it's like, is it for everyone? I think it should be for everyone, and not necessarily, not on a competitive level, but just on a basic survival skills level.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked when I heard someone say, "Oh, I don't know how to swim." I'm like, "Really?" Like, I find it weird because I just grew up, my entire family, we all grew up around a swimming pool. All my cousins, everybody in my family, it was like first thing you learn how to do is swim. How prevalent is not swimming? Like, for how prevalent is it amongst the general population of people that really don't know how to swim?
I've actually found it more so over here in the UAE, not because of the country, but I think there's so many different, so many different nationalities over here. And obviously each nationality's got a different background of whether they've grown up by water, whether they've not, whether they have access to a pool or not. So I think you find that when people start moving over here and then they are thrown into sort of the deep end, as it were, because you're on the coast or you go to a school that has got, pool facilities, that's when you really start to find out if people can and can't swim. But yeah, I think it's a lot more prevalent than you think. And that's more so like when you grow up around people, you grow up in a swimming club or you grow up in a water polo team and everyone can swim, you just automatically assume, oh, everyone must be able to swim. And it's not the case. So that's why I say now looking at it from a different perspective, it is such an important life skill to have.
Now, let's shit on CrossFitters a little bit because we just had a Battle of the East in Kuwait.
Yeah.
I knew a lot of guys that are like, oh, swim? No problem. I know how to swim. And then it turned out like they didn't know what the hell they were doing. You throw them in the water and they just didn't know what they were doing. So, I mean, how prevalent is it in sports where you get the guys that say, oh, I know how to swim, but when it comes to competitive swimming, it's a different story, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I mean, competitive swimming is, you've got to remember competitive swimmers, they're probably training anywhere from 4 or 5 plus hours a day in the pool. I remember when like my last sort of professional season playing in Spain, I was doing 7 hours training a day. That was probably like sort of 5.5 hours in the pool. And then sort of like an hour and a half gym, as it were. And we'd be swimming anywhere from 35 to 50K a week of just swim training. That's not even taking into account the swimming back and forth in like games and tactical work, with the balls.
Jesus, because that's water polo. That's like you're doing sprint work in the in the middle of a game. You have to sprint from one side to the other. So that shit's that's pretty intense.
Water polo depends on like what kind of team you're playing. If you're playing a big heavy team, then the game's a lot slower. There's not many counterattacks because they slow the game down. Whereas obviously if you've got two fast-paced teams and you keep missing at either end, or there's steals here and there, it's just back and forth.
How do they get up above the water? I've always wondered, how the hell do you guys do that? It's weird. Like half your body just floats up above.
Yeah, so I wish it was just floating off. It's a technique called egg beater. So it's sort of, which is really weird because as a swimmer, I was terrible at breaststroke. I hated breaststroke, but egg beater is sort of like a breaststroke leg kick, but one at a time. So you sort of around. Hence the name egg beater. So as if you're whisking an egg, as it were. And that sort of like propels you and you kick, and then you can do like a big breaststroke kick or a big scissor kick, and basically just like power yourself out the water as high as you can. Obviously, depending on how long your arms are, depending on how strong your kick is, depends how high you can get. But yeah, now going back to CrossFitters in the water, I think one thing to remember as well is if a CrossFitter hasn't done much swimming training, if any, as an adult, you've got a bit more understanding about what the capabilities of water are. So you understand that if you swallow water, you can choke on it. You understand that if you don't get a good breath, you understand what drowning is and stuff like, how dangerous the water can be. Whereas when you're a kid and you learn to swim, you're not thinking about that. You just, you run and you jump in the pool because you're like, oh, it's water, I'm going to run and jump in. So you've not got that fear. And then that's when, as you then start to grow up, because you've not had that fear and you get so used to being in the water, you then become a lot more natural in the water. So for me, I'm probably better in the water than I am on land. Mate, tell me to swim 10 miles. I prefer to swim 10 miles and run 10 miles. It's, that's just how comfortable I am. Whereas a CrossFitter that hasn't done much swimming and then finds out that the water is 5 meters deep, not shallow enough to stand, it automatically puts that sort of little bit of fear into your head if you're not used to the water. So I think swimming sometimes looks easy, depending on who you watch do it. If you watch, Michael Phelps swim, you think, oh, God, it looks so graceful. It's so smooth. You think, oh, it must be easy because there's no erratic splashing or anything like that. So then obviously once you then get into the water and the water's a little bit colder than you think and you tense up because it's cold and then your breath starts going, your heart rate starts raising, it's a completely different ball game if you're not used to being in the water.
Yeah. No, that's understandable. I mean, I was surprised because going back to BOE, I was shocked because, I got in and, my typical warm up when I swim is I'll do the breaststroke, I'll do a butterfly. I'll do, I'll do all my strokes just to kind of get my body used to the water again. And again, like I take my kids swimming like 2 or 3 times a week. So, but I was shocked because when I did get in and start doing a butterfly, someone was like, "Oh, you know how to do a butterfly?" I was like, "Doesn't everybody know how to do a butterfly?" Like a backstroke.
Yeah.
Is that something that people don't they don't really do that much of either, or is that just?
I think obviously the main stroke is front crawl, freestyle, and breaststroke. They're probably the 2 of the first ones that you learn. Like I know for me that I predominantly focus on freestyle a bit more so with the CrossFitters that I work with. It's the fastest stroke. So obviously if you can get someone, swimming efficiently doing freestyle, then obviously it's a lot better than someone swimming breaststroke. So, but I know that there are certain countries around the world that always teach breaststroke to start with. That's the first thing that they learn. There's certain, movements of the leg kick and stuff. But I think that I predominantly work with adults that they either want to swim for fitness or they want to swim to get better, just in case a swim competition comes up in a CrossFit camp or something. So I always focus on freestyle because it's always the fastest stroke to use in the water. So I do work on other strokes as well, but like I say, for me, it's working on that technique and making sure that freestyle is working efficiently first before I move on to anything else.
And I think you brought up a great point, and that's pretty much why we're talking about all this, is when it comes to people that do it for fitness and when it comes to people that do it for competitive. Let's start with the people that do it for fitness first.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people where they have an injury and their doctor or their physio says, all right, well, swim. That's the best thing you can do for your body right now. However, and I've seen this before at times where people will go in and swim and, they're kind of like their mechanics are all over the place. So what could people watch out for when it comes to that to sort of not give themselves a mechanical disadvantage to worsen an injury or worsen their fitness?
Yeah, I think if someone's got an injury to start with, I think it depends on the severity of the injury to start with or what the injury is or where the injury is. So, for example, if you've got an injury, you've rolled your ankle or something, it's a pretty bad ankle strain and you're not really able to walk on it. There's nothing stopping you getting in the water and keeping it loose, but also then you've got the option of having a pull buoy where you can put that between your legs and not use your legs, so you just use your arms only. And sort of vice versa, if you've got a bit of
what's a pull buoy?
A pull buoy, it's a little float. It's a little float, and you put it between your legs.
All right.
And basically, you squeeze it together with your legs, keeps your legs up nice and high, so you can still keep swimming.
Okay.
But it limits the use of your legs, so it stops you from kicking. So then it's used whether you've got an injury or not to focus on pull efficiency and how powerful you can work on your pull because you're only using your arms to pull yourself through the water. And that's vice versa as well. If you've got something wrong with your hand, then you could use a kick float, which is a float that you hold onto with your hands, and then just work solely on your kick.
Okay.
So obviously, like I say, depending on what your injury is, there's always sort of ways around it. And obviously the beauty of swimming and obviously the beauty of being in the water, and more so if it's a pool that you can sort of stand up in, you've got that support and that buoyancy of the water. There's that feeling of floating around, and it's a lot more relaxing to be in there. So obviously your body is automatically more supported and not under any strain. There's no weighted load like you would have with a barbell, etc. So it's just a good way to sort of give your joints a bit of a break, but let your joints move in the movements that they're used to moving in, but in a supported environment. And that's where sort of your rehabilitation that comes into the water. But I've worked with actually a lot of footballers last summer. I had a lot of footballers come over from the UK in their off season. Some of them had sort of like little niggles, little injuries. So we'd get them in the water. We'd do a lot of sort of running on the spot and different movements in the water because there's no weighted load. There's no impact on the joints, on the knees, on the ankles, on the hip, as it were, that they've got problems with. So it allowed them to still stay fit, but keep the joint mobile and keep the joint moving without any sort of major risk of making the injury worse. So instead of like sat there doing nothing and letting things sort of seize and tighten up, it just allowed them to keep moving and keep active and keep their fitness levels a bit higher than would be if they were doing nothing.
That's pretty cool. Now let's go into the fitness, Larry. Say I'm an average person and I want to swim for fitness.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm swimming for fitness," and it's really them just kind of going at a snail's pace in the pool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what differentiates swimming for fitness and then swimming for leisure? I would say.
So for me, swimming for leisure would just be I always associate. This is probably wrong to do. So I associate swimming for leisure with what I call granny breaststroke, which is what you see the old ladies doing at the pool with their head out and just cruising along, little small strokes.
You ever been to a gym in Kuwait?
I've never been to Kuwait.
You've never been to
No,
Kuwait? Oh,
never.
man, you got to go. I mean, if you go to like Oxygen Gym, beautiful gym. And I see a lot of my buddies that say, oh, yeah, I'm swimming, I'm exercising. Swimming is my exercise. And they're literally doing the granny stroke.
Yeah.
Like that's all they're doing. And it's like, dude,
there's nothing wrong with it.
There isn't. No, there isn't. You're still moving. But it's like, if you're swimming for exercise, there needs to be a little bit of cardio work in there or something.
I would say that the sort of granny breaststroke it's again good for sort of like staying loose, a bit of mobility, again, being in that supported environment with the water sort of help, keeping you up as it were. And there's still going to be some effects, maybe, a small amount of sort of aerobic fitness that comes from that, depending on the distance that you swim. But then that's when it changes. When you want to talk about swimming for fitness, then you've got your different levels of swimming, as it were. So you'll work on your aerobic capacity. You've got your threshold, like your anaerobic threshold, and then you just your anaerobic capacity just to sprint. Your pure underwater work where you're really, working the lungs, where you're holding your breath for so long that then you come up and then you try and sprint. There's just so much stuff that you can do when it comes to fitness. And obviously then there's so many different distances. There's so many different time frames you can work off. You've then got your own percentages that you can work off as well. So there's a big difference between sort of leisurely swimming and then actual fitness, swimming for fitness.
What would your program look like for someone? Say I came to you today and I'm like, hey, I don't work out. I don't do anything. And I want to swim for fitness. Like this is the only exercise I want to do because I know it doesn't hurt my joints, doesn't do this. So what would a program almost look like
I've got like an online program that I've recently launched. It's the thing with swimming is swimming takes a lot out of people that aren't used to swimming. So you get someone that sort of, again, isn't controlling their breathing, their exhale and their inhale efficiently, their heart rate's going to go through the roof. So by doing 2 lengths and not breathing properly, you'll find they get to the end of the length and they're absolutely gasping for air. Whereas if you've got someone that actually then starts to understand being able to control their breathing and keeping their heart rate down, they can swim for obviously a much, much longer period of time. And that's why my online program works. I've got like a technique and a drill session, which is there's no sort of speed element added to it. It's more so focusing on different teaching points, different techniques to do during that session and just work on those for that session alone. Then you've got 2 volume/distance sessions where that could be anything from a long aerobic piece with a short sprint set at the end, or it could be some pyramid work or some threshold work throughout. So you're working, 10 100s off a pace that you can work off. So my program works off your own time. So before you start the program, it's noted to start that you should know how fast you can swim a 50, a 100, a 200, and a 500. If you can't get to the 500, that's fine. We can still work off 100 and 200 times and that. But it's important to have those times just so that when I program a workout, if I say it's 10 100s and you need to swim each 100 at your best time plus 10 seconds, then that's the time that you need to hold per 100. Then you have the rest. So it's just working off people being able to hold their own threshold, not trying to sort of put a threshold on someone, because obviously everyone's got different levels of swimming capabilities. And then I also throw in there like a CrossFit style swim WOD too. And this is actually a lot of the stuff I've done with the swimming has been aimed at CrossFitters. So it's a great way to get a swim workout in, but also get a bit of a CrossFit style workout. So you understand what it's like to swim under fatigue. So it's completely different swimming 100 meters just off the bat by itself. But if you've got to swim 100 meters, knowing that you've got 5 rounds of DT afterwards, just for example, or you've got 5 rounds of DT, then a 200 meter swim, it's a completely different ball game when you've got something else added in. So what I do is I program like a CrossFit workout where it could be something along the lines of, a 20-minute AMRAP, 50-meter swim, and then you've got 2 push-ups, 2 air squats, 50-meter swim, 4 push-ups, 4 air squats, 50-meter swim. And obviously you just keep adding every time. So obviously as you get through the workout, you get a lot more fatigue from the push-ups and the air squats. Yeah. So then you've got to learn to control the swim as you get further and further through the workout so you don't blow out.
That's pretty cool, dude. That sounds like fun, man.
Yeah, so you find that the push-ups and the air squats are easy. But obviously once you start getting to a point where you're doing 20 push-ups and 20 air squats and then doing another 50-meter, your arms start to get heavier, your legs start to get heavier, and you've got to learn to control that stroke in the water and be nice and long and efficient so that you can get there and back without really taxing yourself. So effectively use the swim as a recovery to then blast the land stuff again. So it's all about finding sort of your strengths and your weaknesses and working to that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, that sounds like a fun workout.
Yeah, that's what I enjoy. I enjoy that sort of like adding a little CrossFit element on the side of of a swim workout. And there's so many different ways you can do it. You can do an AMRAP, you can do an EMOM, you can do an intervals. There's plenty of ways to do it. So
For normal people, AMRAP is as many reps as possible. EMOM is every minute on the minute. Because we have a lot of CrossFitters that listen to the show, but at the same time, we have a lot of people that just look at general fitness.
Okay.
So now, all right, let's shift a little bit to your competitive swimmers, your triathletes, your fitness enthusiasts who jump into a triathlon once or twice a year, that do swimming competitions. I know we have a couple of swimmers that listen to the show, and they definitely benefit from this. And we have a lot of CrossFit athletes too. So how would the programming shift from that? Or would it be a similar type of program, but with different dynamics?
Depends on the amount of times a week you can get a swim session in. So with CrossFitters in particular, I've put 4 sessions in my online programming just so that there's 4 to pick from. So if you know that you need to work on your actual conditioning, then you can choose one of the volume sessions. If you really need to work on your technique before you start the conditioning, then you can work on the drill sessions more so. You find that a lot of CrossFitters can probably only fit in probably like 2 sessions maximum of swimming a week, maybe 3 if they're lucky. Yeah, but just because of the pure volume of everything else that they're doing, with their running, with the, your strength work, with your barbell cycling, with your Metcons. Like I say, swimming takes a lot out of you if you're not used to it. So you need to be clever where you add it in so that you're then able to recover properly or able to then do your next session as well as you want to. But then obviously with a competitive swimmer, your competitive swimmers, you'll be swimming every day, at least 5-6 times a week, at least 1 session, sometimes twice a day. So their volume is just so much higher when it comes to a competitive swimmer than a CrossFitter that they're sort of past the point of technique. They still do some technique and drill work, but the majority of stuff that they do is pure distance and volume and just basically getting that capacity to be able to swim. Obviously, if you're a 100-meter sprinter, then your training is going to be slightly different to if your main work event is a 1,500-meter swim. Obviously, you do a lot more distance with a 1,500 than you would for 100. And 100, you would do a lot more power-based work. You might do a bit more work in the gym, some power-based exercises to really start getting that pull nice and strong. You might use more paddle work or flipper-based work just to really work on like fine-tuning that stroke because you're only swimming for either, depending on the length of the pool, 4 or 2 lengths. So again, with a competitive swimmer, your volume is just 10 times different to what a CrossFitter would be solely in the swimming side. Obviously, a CrossFitter probably spends 80%, 90% in the gym, whereas a swimmer would spend 80%, 90% in the water. So
now, what would be some good complementary exercises or accessory work, as CrossFitters call it, for swimmers or competitive swimmers that I know? Because I know competitive swimmers that have stuck with the same program for years.
Yeah, I think shoulder health is a big one. Core work is one that's often overlooked for swimming. And just obviously, you're not going to be doing a lot of heavy stuff. And if you are, you probably do that in your off season. Then everything else is sort of like tapered down towards your competitions. But yeah, shoulder work. So the sort of things that you would do before you start a CrossFit session, you might have your internal and external rotation. So, to basically just get that shoulder girdle nice and warm. Mobility, you want a nice range of mobility for your shoulders to be able to go through to, especially that's why a lot of people struggle for butterfly and breaststroke because they can't get the movement from their shoulders. They're too stiff and they can't get their arms over. Whereas if they're loose and mobile, then it's a lot easier for the arm to move in that movement. So yeah, it's just, I think maintaining shoulder health, core-based exercises. So, if you think of your CrossFitters, you want to do stuff like sort of your hollow holds, your hollow rocks, anything like rotational movement is a good one because you actually, when you swim in,
there's some rotation.
There's rotation there. Then you might want to, for example, a breaststroke. I might want some explosive jump squats and things like that because of the movement of the legs in breaststroke, and then just overall general, banded pull aparts, external rotation.
If you had to pick 2 shoulder exercises and 2 core exercises, what would your go-tos be? If someone's like, I can only do these 2 exercises, I only have time to do 2 exercises for shoulders and 2 for core, what would your go-to be?
I'd probably do I'd probably mix a couple. So for example, I'd probably have like a high external, internal rotation, but then maybe add like a bit of a press in at the top. And actually like one that's quite good is like just a body weight, like a gymnastic swimming, as it were. So you sort of lie on the floor and you sort of mimic the movement, as it were, of the swim, but it's sort of like you're pulling the shoulders back, keeping the core nice and tight. If you do it for like sort of 45 seconds, it actually starts to like really burn. And then you're getting those sort of the smaller intricate muscles actually working and firing. And then when it comes to core, I'd probably go for like a simple hollow hold or hollow rock. And then maybe like a rotational throw, like a weighted throw against the wall.
Something that CrossFitters never do. Like there's zero rotation in CrossFit. I think that's my biggest knock on it. Besides, they can't play other sports. All right, let's move away from that. Let's go into coaching, because right now in Kuwait especially, and I'm sure this is probably everywhere now, because swimming and CrossFit, like we were talking earlier, it's been, kind of jumping on the scene everywhere. So what should a good swimming coach look like? I mean, what would I look for in, a swimming instructor or a swimming coach? Because they're going to be popping up, and people are obviously, you have your really good ones, and then you're going to have the guys that got a certificate for $25, at like 7-Eleven. So
I think, like you say, so I think it's great that swimming is coming onto the scene a lot more in CrossFit. I think it's a great way of testing. It's another modality to add in there. It's another great test of fitness. And obviously then once you sort of combine it with a run, swim, run, or some, kettlebell work and then another swim, adding those two together really makes those athletes sort of have to fine tune how good they are at fitness, how good they are at each movement and things like that. So in terms of swimming, I wouldn't say a coach has to necessarily look like anything, but one thing I would say with a coach is I think it'd be attention to detail on technique, and especially from a CrossFitter looking outside as well. You want to be looking for someone that is able to sort of watch you swim and spot what the problem is sort of straight away, especially from above the water. If someone can sort of spot sort of problems that you're having, and that you can identify their lead arm's not high enough, or they're pulling too soon, or their kick isn't efficient, or they're not reaching and rotating just from watching them do a couple of lengths, then you're onto someone that knows what they're talking about with swimming. Then you can go further and you can start filming underwater or getting the coach in the water to sort of watch what you're doing with your pull, the position of your pull, the position of your hands, whether your fingers are wide, whether they're too close, or whether they're nice and relaxed. There's loads of things to... So
would you want them relaxed or...
100%.
All right, because I've always swum and I always thought I need to keep them tense, but then I got into this habit of just kind of like...
Yeah, this is probably I'd probably say one of the main sort of technique changes or technique points and tips that I've given to a lot of the CrossFitters that I've worked with. And that is and it's so easy for me to say to relax in the water, but with CrossFitters being so, you have that big shoulder, thick CrossFitter, heavy muscular body, as it were. They need to learn to relax in the water. So one of the main things from the hand point of view is I find a lot of people trying to be too precise where they put their hands, but at the same time, they're keeping their hands so tight together that as soon as they're tensing their hands, their forearms tenses, their bicep tenses, their shoulders are then tense, and then everything becomes really robotic. So what I try and go for is I try and sort of say, if you can learn to relax your hand and sort of have small gaps between your fingers, and I'm just talking like a normal hand position like that. I'm not talking wide. So it's just nice and relaxed. The speed that you pull your hand through the water can't get through those gaps fast enough. So you then sort of create yourself a bigger surface area anyway. And then because you're relaxing your hands, your forearm is relaxed, your biceps and your upper arm, and then your shoulders are relaxed as well. So it just allows you to get into that more relaxed movement with each stroke instead of things being too robotic. And then after you think about throwing a stone in the water, you throw a stone, it's going to sink. And I feel it's the same with a CrossFitter, so muscular that if they're tense, they're going to sink. Whereas if they're relaxed, there's just a lot more fluidity to their movement that actually allows them to stay up. If that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense. That definitely makes a lot of sense. Now, how do you film in the water? I'm just curious with that one. Like, I've never seen that. GoPro or what?
Yeah, I definitely don't use my phone that is apparently waterproof. I won't say what the brand is. I clicked the wrong button when I went in the water and sort of ruined my phone out to get a brand new one. But it'd be GoPro more than anything.
Yeah.
Or any of the waterproof camera that you've got. But it doesn't need to be, you sort of need to sort of be able to film sort of like a head-on / side angle just so you can sort of see the catch of each stroke or the position of the hands and whether they're kicking too deep or whether they're bending their knees too much and things like that. So it's that extra step to, again, like I say, fine-tuning someone's technique. And for me, technique has to take, it has to take sort of center stage before you then start working on your endurance and your aerobic capacity side of swimming.
Now, you're obviously a guy that did competitive swimming, and you've competed a lot, and you're obviously, I mean, from what you're saying and what everyone said about you too. You're a pretty good swimming coach. I mean, you're a really good swimming coach from what I've heard. Now, you're welcome, man. Now, when it comes to ex-athletes, I say this with, because I see a lot of it where in Kuwait, I saw a lot of it in the United States where you had the ex-swimmer who, swam in high school or swam in college, and then all of a sudden they're out and it's like, all right, I'm a swimming coach. And you know how that goes sometimes. Yeah. So what are some of the things that you would look for to know that this guy has the maturity to maintain their athletes throughout their process, if that makes any sense? Does that make any sense? Does that question
I think sometimes you've got to look at something. For me, going away, like I stopped competitive swimming probably when I was about 16, 17. I'm 33 this year. And obviously I carried on playing water polo for years after that. So I still watch swimming. I still keep up to date. Even myself, I find myself sometimes sat watching YouTube videos. It's always cool to see what other coaches are saying and see, you always pick up something. There's someone could say something just just rearrange a sentence, as it were, and it clicks. So it's always good to watch other coaches, to listen to other coaches, because they might say something to me that might think, oh, actually, that resonated with me. So if it resonated with me, then it might resonate with my clients. I think you've got to find a coach that isn't looking to live their career through you, as it were. So that I think that for me is where, that for me is good, because I knew at a young age that I wasn't going to be a swimmer. I was going to follow the water polo path. But obviously I still had to swim and be good at swimming to play the position that I played in water polo. So I don't have a swimming career to try and win back, as it were. So, and at the same time, I've not got a CrossFit career that I'm trying to rebuild. So I wasn't a CrossFit athlete that nearly made the games or that went to regionals. I've only been doing CrossFit probably 3 years now. So for me, I've always done fitness. I've always been active. That's why I think I've picked up CrossFit quite well, is because my movement patterns were pretty good. My base of fitness, my engine base was pretty good because of all the swimming that I did. Yeah, it's
got to be solid playing freaking water polo, dude. Like, that shit's tough, man.
And then what I've been able to do is, like, luckily for me, I get to work with the guys here at Life and train with the guys here at Life, and the programming's great here. And obviously you've got Sam and James that are doing a great job with Dark Horse Programming here. So you sort of see workouts that they do. I work alongside Phil Hesketh and his prepared programming too, and he's got so much experience with his programming. So it's just been great for me to sort of see these different elements of CrossFit programming, do them myself, my own training, and then be able to incorporate that into swimming as well at the same time. So you take a workout and you adjust it slightly to fit a swimming instead of a run, and then you change the reps around. And that's where I think I've just been lucky that I've worked with such good people, especially within the programming side of CrossFit, that I've been able to sort of add swimming into it. And like I say, for me, I'm also lucky that I'll focus on technique, so that we have to sort the technique out first with someone swimming before we then start working on a CrossFit swim WOD, because they need to learn how to be efficient in the water. And I think that's what it is with a coach. You've got to find someone that actually cares about that attention to detail and isn't trying to push someone too hard too soon. They just, they need them to work on this one specific thing until it starts to click and you get that muscle memory. And then you can say, right, okay, now we can move you on to this, as it were. And I think that's where, like, my online programming now, I've got those sort of 4 different sessions where they're 4 completely different sessions that people can sort of pick their strengths and their weaknesses and either get 2 sessions in or all 4 if they've got time to do. And they're covering like a lot of the bases that they need to cover.
Oh, dude. I mean, all right. So here's my question for you. If you see a swim, like a swim, run, swim in a CrossFit WOD and you're competing, is that like, all right, this is my game? So are you destroying people
I think it depends. It depends on the distance of the run and also the distance of the swim. I mean, I back myself on most swim workouts. I've done quite a few swim workouts against quite a few games athletes that have come over here. And luckily enough, I've not lost one yet. So
nice, dude. That's
I might not do any more just to say that I never lost one. But it just depends on the distance. I remember we did one last year. There's quite a few of us that did it. I think there was like me, Phil Hesketh, Mia Hesketh, Willie Georges, Street Horner, Sam Clark. I think there was Emily was there as well. And it was like a 500-meter swim and then a 4K run.
Okay.
And before the race, everyone's like, okay, Mike, how much are you going to win it by? And I was like, genuinely don't know if I'm going to win this race, because a 4K run afterwards is a long time for someone to be able to catch up. So it depends on how far ahead I can get on the swim to give myself that head start. And I remember it being the toughest one that I've done. It was actually quite a choppy swim as well. It was we did it at the beach. Yeah, I think I ended up winning the workout by like 20 seconds. I think it was Street and Willie that came in like literally like 20 seconds behind me. And I remember passing them when we got to the 2,000 meter mark and turning back. I passed them on like the 200 mark. So I was about 400 meters ahead.
Oh, damn.
And I knew I was much further than that ahead when I come out the swim. So I knew they were catching me. And I could just hear footsteps behind me as I'm running. I'm like, please don't let them catch me. I can see the finish line. But yeah, again, it just depends. Like for me, if I was to do a run, swim, run, I wouldn't, I think if you go back to the, I think was it the Redeemed and Dominant, the CrossFit documentary that came out. And it was the year they had a run, swim, run. And everyone absolutely pelted the first run, and you got them commentating saying, the people are doing like sub 5 sort of stupid, like basically doing 1 mile PRs as it were, because they were just going for it.
Wow.
For me, if I was going to do that race, I would never go, knowing that I've got a run afterwards as well, I would try and sort of stay with the pack, then go ahead on the swim, and then I would push that last run.
Yeah.
But again, it just depends on what your strengths and your weaknesses.
What about the last workout in DXB where it was the swim and then I think it was the sandbag cleans? Was it sandbag cleans or sandbag squat? Yeah. How would you have handled that one? Because
I would have. So it was 20, 10, 5 sandbag cleans at 150 pounds with what was meant to be what was it? I think it was meant to be a 150 meter swim between each one. So 20, 150, 10, 155, 150. Yeah. There's no way that swim was 150.
It didn't look it, that's for sure.
That swim was easily probably like 220,
that's
maybe
a big
more.
That's a big difference, dude.
So I was down there because I had a coach's pass, and obviously I was working with a lot of the guys, and I was looking at it going, that's not 150, it's much longer. And the team event went first. So the teams was a 4x150 relay. And there was a lot of teams that got, there was no teams finished under the cap. The only 2 teams that were close to finishing was Team Prepared and Team We Got Cake. So you got Team Prepared, which was Phil Hesketh, Mir Hesketh, Alexander Elbro, and Amelia Lepanen. They were like 10 seconds, like literally just coming out of the water, and the time cap went. It was like a 16-minute time cap, I think it was. And then We Got Cake behind was like Alex Smith, Cody Mooney, Jessica Griffiths, and Danny Spiegel. And they were like probably about 10 meters behind those. They were so close to finishing. But then because there were some teams that got past the last buoy, as it were, I think it was like a 6 or 7 team tie for first place because no one finished on that time cap.
Okay.
I mean, if they'd have added an extra minute to that workout, you probably would have had your first, second, third, and then you could have had a tie for like 4th, 5th, 6th, But that was because it wasn't 150. It was definitely longer because I knew how long it should take Phil and Mia to do that sort of distance because we'd done those kind of distances in training, and it was taking Phil like a minute longer. And I was like, there's no way that's 150. So then I was looking at the individual workout, and obviously the individual workout had the sandbags in between. 20 sandbag cleans at 150 straight off the bat before you get in the water is going to jack your heart rate so high that I probably would have been a bit more conservative on those 20, push the swims more. Whereas obviously some of these guys weren't great swimmers, so they felt that they had to push the sandbag to then get more time in the water. But then you just find that as soon as you get in the water, you're again coming back to that point of if you're not efficient in the water and you're not able to control your heart rate and control your breathing to bring your heart rate back down again, that swim's going to be hell. It's going to be horrible. So I think for me, my tactics would have been probably get that 20 out of the way, but conservative pace, not try and rush through it. Push the first swim, push the 10 push the next 10 cleans because it's obviously half of what you've already done. Push the swim again, 5, absolutely bang out the 5, and then depending on the time, depending on where you are in the race, you can either cruise the last swim or you push the swim to get under the time cap. And there's only 2 guys that finished under the time cap on that day. So,
oh, wow.
It was John Akowski and Brent Fikowski. So,
Jesus.
It was a tough workout.
It looked it. It didn't. It definitely didn't. When I was watching on YouTube, it didn't look like 150 meters.
Yeah, it was like
you could tell. Yeah. Like I was like, maybe the tide rolled in or something.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think that I tested before because it was funny. The same day, luckily, I got a chance to speak to Rich Froning, and I turned around to him. I was just like, It wasn't 150, was it? He goes, nah, there's no way that was 150. Because he's like, his team had done, like, practiced that swim back in the US and obviously finished well under the time. If it was a 150 meter, 100% that time cap was fine, no problem whatsoever. But that, the extra sort of like 50 to 100 meters that it could have been,
that's a big difference.
Made a big difference.
No, that makes sense.
But like, then again, at the same time, you've got to look at it as, well, okay, we're looking to test fitness here, and swimming is an element of fitness. So it just shows that you've probably got to work a bit more on the swimming and be able to push that pace a little bit harder. But yeah, it was I think what happened was maybe the buoys maybe moved a little bit, or the tide had just come a bit further in. So like, you got 15, 20 meters added on at the start before. But
now, what do you say? I mean, you brought up a good point earlier. And when people do, like, they jack their heart rate up with the sandbag cleans, and I'm switching back to BOE because a lot of listeners can relate to that a little bit more. And I think it was swim, get out, you do...
It's like goblet squats, wasn't it?
Yeah. 50 goblet squats and 30 shoulder to overhead, alternating arms, or I think it was like each arm or something like that. And I remember when I jumped back into the pool for my second swim, I got halfway and I just turned on my back and I started backstroking.
Yeah.
And it saved my ass.
Yeah, initially. Because you had a chance to breathe.
I had a chance. Yeah, I had a chance to breathe, and it saved my ass. Yeah. And lo and behold, I thought that killed me. I didn't look at anybody near me. Yeah. All I had my eyes on was Miko in front of me. And I was like, if I can maintain a lap behind Miko, like one length behind Miko, I'm good.
You did it right.
Like, I know I'm all right if I could stay somewhat close. I finished that workout in third. Yeah. And my swim time was really good. But now, how do you not jack your heart rate up before getting into the pool with something
I don't think it's necessarily about not jacking your heart rate up. I think it's about being able to control it.
How do you control it? Do you flip on your back and do a backstroke? Like, what can you do?
This would be your breathe. So this all comes down to how aggressive your exhale is underwater. So when you're swimming, your face is down in the water. Some people make the mistake of trying to hold their breath. And obviously, if you think about trying to hold your breath for as long as you can, you hold your breath. And then towards the end where you're starting to get to that point where you can't hold it anymore, your chest just gets tighter and tighter and you feel that you need to, gasp for air. That's exactly what happens in swimming. And obviously that's when your heart rate goes up. So what you need to do is you need to learn to control your exhale. So it doesn't matter whether you swim and breathe every 2 strokes, every 3, every 4. You've got to learn to control your exhale within those strokes. So if I get in and I breathe, so I turn and I take a breath, and then I put my face back in the water. If I know that I'm going to breathe after 4 more strokes, then within that 4 strokes, I gradually let the air out.
Okay.
So that then when I turn on that 4th stroke to breathe, I'm ready to take the air straight back in again. Okay. So it's not so much where some people make the mistake of because they hold their breath, and then when they turn to breathe, you've got to expel the carbon dioxide first before you can take in the oxygen. So if you hold your breath and then turn, you've got to blow it out to then breathe it in. Whereas if you've already released sort of 70% of it, as it were, gradually, you then turn, take the breath, and then you sort of repeat the process. And then by breathing and gradually exhaling, that's how you start to bring your heart rate back down again. And this is what I say about relaxing the hands and relaxing the arms and staying relaxed. All this adds together in terms of bringing the heart rate back down, because you're not over tensing and being inefficient. And also you're not gasping for air because you're learning to, and that's where you have to do your swim training and practice these breathing exercises. So that could be an exercise that I put in my program. It could be, okay, we're going to do 6 200-meter swims. Yeah. On the first 50, you breathe every 3. On the second 50, you breathe every 4. On the third, every 5. On the fourth, every 6. So, you then have to think about how much you're exhaling in the water before you breathe. So if you expel at the same rate underwater when you're breathing every 2 strokes as you would every 6, then you're going to expel too much air. So if I'm breathing every 2, it would be breathe. Whereas if I'm going to breathe every 6, it would be breathe, and it would be, hopefully the listeners can hear that. there's a bit of a difference there. But yeah, so you'd just be a bit more gradual. So if you're too aggressive, then that's how you keep your heart rate up. And this is why, the only time you're sort of aggressive is when you're doing a sprint. So if you're just doing 150 or you're doing 100 meters, then Olympic style swimmers they're probably not going to breathe in a 50-meter swim or once at max.
Yeah.
So it's just head down and go. Whereas a 100-meter swim, you're going to breathe a little bit more, but your exhale is going to be a bit more aggressive as opposed to someone that's swimming a 400-meter swim, because you've got that much longer to go. So you've just got to control things. So the aggression on my exhale of a 2-stroke is going to be a lot harder than my aggression on a 6-stroke, because you've just got to be able to control it more so. And hopefully that makes sense to any listeners that can't see what I'm saying.
I'm just sitting here, I'm like, shit, I had it all wrong my whole life.
Yeah. So again, just by doing that, if you think about if you hold your breath and then you let a little bit of air out, you just release that pressure, or you release a bit of the pressure. It's exactly the same when you're swimming. If you try and hold on to it, you become that brick in the water, because everything starts to tense and then everything becomes robotic. Whereas, like I said, just because I'm a swimmer and I tell someone to relax, I'm not saying it because I find swimming relaxing. That's the main aim that we're going for when we're swimming, is you need to be relaxed in the water so that things become more efficient.
Wow, dude, I've had it all wrong my entire life. Shit.
And we're not even in the water. So
I know, right, dude? I mean, this is one of the podcasts where I'm definitely going to put the videos up.
There we go.
Because that was a good video to show. And I guarantee you, like, a lot of the CrossFit buddies that I have that listen to the podcast, they're going to be like, shit, dude, that's a game changer right there.
Yeah, it will be. Like I say, for me, the relaxing the hands and the breathing control are the two of the main things that really work in terms of helping a CrossFitter swim. That, and my third one was like your leg kick. So a lot of swimming coaches, you can do drills where it's like silent kick, where you try and kick powerfully underwater but without breaking the surface, which is great for a swimmer if a swimmer knows that they're swimming in the right body position. But you find a lot of CrossFitters, their legs start to sink because their legs are a lot heavier because of all the squatting, all the lunging that they've done. Their legs are a lot more muscular. So teaching points I go for CrossFitters is just to try and break the surface slightly with their feet, not too much, but to feel that break. And then if you feel that break, then you know your legs are there.
Yeah.
If you're not feeling that break, then 9 times out of 10 with a CrossFitter, their legs are down there, and then you start to drag. So that shows the difference between teaching a CrossFitter to swim or a novice to swim as opposed to a competitive swimmer, because competitive swimmers is so much better at their technique and their stroke standards that you can do certain drills that you couldn't do with other people because they've got to get basic.
Oh, wow. That was intense. We're definitely bringing you back on here. I'm going to definitely get all the questions that I get after this, and we'll have you back on here. It'd be awesome if you could come back on. Now, something we like to do before we wrap up is rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to your head, just answer it, man.
Right.
All right. Live on the moon or a mountain?
Mountain.
Drive a car or a bus?
Car.
Vegan or carnivore?
Carnivore.
Carnivore. Ooh, that's an interesting one for a swimmer, dude. Surprised. All right. Live in a forest or live in the desert?
I'd probably say forest, just because I live in the desert now. So.
All right. This is an easy one for you. Actually, this one might be a hard one. Butterfly stroke or backstroke?
Butterfly.
It's all you can do for the rest of your life.
Butterfly.
All right. Thanks, man. And how can people find you? Obviously on Instagram.
My Instagram is Born Fit to Swim. And again, like with my online programming, the link is in my bio on my Instagram. So that's probably the best place to reach me.
All right, cool, dude. Thank you. Thanks.
No worries. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. You can also find us on Instagram at The Project Kuwait. Thank you, and join us next time.